I have $0 in the bank, no land, no tractor, nothing to my name. But in this series, I'm going to build a full-blown farming empire from absolutely nothing. Every single dollar will be earned legit. No cheats, no shortcuts, just pure hustle. And today's mission, make our very first $1,000. There's really only one way to start, contract work. I mean, let's be real. We can't even afford to buy a shovel right now. So it's time to grind, take whatever jobs we can find, and slowly build our way up from rock bottom. There were 2 fertilizing contracts available, but I couldn't accept them because I didn't have any money to buy fertilizer up front. Without fertilizer, I couldn't complete the jobs, so I had no choice but to wait for other contracts to appear, ones that didn't require any initial investment. Eventually, a contract popped up to harvest field 62, which was ready for an oat harvest. The contract payout was just under $3,000, and after leasing the equipment, I'd be left with a profit of around $2,000. Not the biggest win, but I had no choice. I had to start somewhere. This would be my first real step forward. I didn't waste a second. I jumped into the harvester and headed straight to the field. Since I didn't have enough money to hire an AI worker, I had to do everything myself. That's just how it is at the beginning. Once I start making more money, I'll be able to delegate some of this work. After finishing the harvest, I transported the crops to the farmer's market to sell the leftover oats. That alone earned me just under $1,200 on top of the contract pay. Not bad for the first day of work. With the money from the harvest, I finally had enough to buy some fertilizer and take on fertilizing contracts. These are some of the easiest and most profitable jobs early on. I accepted 3 contracts on fields 21, 23, and 30, and picked up 1,000 liters of solid fertilizer from the store. Once those fields were fertilized, I collected the payouts from the contracts, just over $8,000 total. I even saved the leftover fertilizer for future contracts by unloading it back at the store. The same field I harvested earlier, field 62, now needed cultivating. I accepted that contract as well, which brought in around $2,000. After that, I picked up a rock removal contract for $2,300. More fertilizing contracts started appearing, so I accepted a few more, bringing in an additional $6,500. Next, I took on a stone picking contract that earned me $3,800, and I also sold the stones I collected from the field, making an extra $500. After that, I accepted a bale wrapping contract on field 45 that brought in $5,000. At this stage, I didn't have many options. I just had to keep grinding out contract after contract to build up enough money to finally buy my first piece of land. That was the goal for today. I accepted a bunch of smaller jobs, fertilizing, stone picking, and then a big one landed, harvesting field 91 with canola. The contract itself was worth $11,700, which made it my highest-paying job so far. I immediately jumped into the harvester and even hired an AI worker to help with the field. After delivering the harvest to the selling point, I also sold the leftover canola and earned an extra $7,300. Not bad at all. Right after that, I picked up another big contract, fertilizing field 77 for $9,600. I continued hammering out job after job, harvesting, fertilizing, and more. I also sold leftover crops from the contracts, which added even more to the bank account. Another big contract came in, baling on field 88, which paid me $10,000. I kept going, stacking contract after contract, determined to save enough money to finally buy a piece of land, and hopefully a house too, so I wouldn't have to sleep under the stars. Eventually, after a full day of hustling, I managed to stack up $182,000. After a lot of thinking and scanning the map, I decided to buy farmland 54 for $145,000. Why that field specifically? You'll have to wait for the next episode to find out the plan I've got brewing. But here's the catch. Buying the land left me with only $36,400 in the bank, not enough to buy a house. And I wasn't about to sleep on the grass. So, I went right back to work. After grinding out a few more contracts, I earned just over $55,000, which was exactly what I needed to buy a farmhouse. Mission accomplished. Today, we've got a new mission. Buy our first tractor and start putting our money to work. With just $1,700 in the bank, this won't be easy. Let's get to work. The first contract that came in was perfect. Harvesting peas on field 6. The payout? $4,600 just from the contract, not including any leftover crops I can sell. I wasted no time. Jumped in the harvester, drove straight to the field, and hired an AI worker to handle the job. While that was going, I picked up another contract, harvesting spinach on field 25. That one alone was worth $8,000, plus extra from the leftover spinach. The AI handled the harvests while I transported the crops to the selling points. Back and forth, over and over. But it was worth it. Next up, another pea harvest on field 66. This one was smooth. I didn't even lease new equipment, just reused the harvester from field 6. That decision saved me $600 and earned me $1,700 from the contract. Momentum was building, so I kept pushing. I earned $6,500 from harvesting sorghum on field 19, followed by $900 from cultivating field 66. Then I brought in another $4,900 from fertilizing field 84, and a combined $11,300 from fertilizing fields 13 and 76. I squeezed in another sorghum harvest for $6,700, plus a fertilizing job on field 71 for $900. And the list goes on. I was in full grind mode. After a few hours of back-to-back contracts, I had saved up nearly $130,000. Time to start thinking like a real farmer. I wanted some of that money to work for me. So I made my first real investment. 2 greenhouses. These will passively generate income by producing lettuce, one of the most profitable greenhouse crops in the game. But greenhouses need water. So I picked up a $25,000 water trailer. Using a tractor from one of the contract jobs, I hauled the trailer back to my land and began filling up the greenhouses. Now I had just $32,000 left in the bank. That's not enough for a decent tractor that can actually carry us long term. And I really wanted to hit my goal today. Buy my first tractor. So I went back to work. More cultivating, more mowing, more harvesting. And after a final push, I reached $95,000. Enough. I went to the dealership and bought the Deutz-Fahr Agrostar 8.31, a 230 horsepower beast for just $89,500. In my opinion, this is the best bang-for-your-buck medium tractor in FS25. It's powerful, reliable, and can handle pretty much anything I throw at it. I drove it back to the farm, and that first drive just hits different. I've got just under $17,000 in the bank, and my goal is to level up. That means more cash, more assets, and more opportunities to make passive income. Let's get to work. Right off the bat, a contract popped up to cultivate Field 43. Without hesitation, I leased the tractor, attached the cultivator, and got straight to the field. Then I hired an AI worker to handle the labor while I moved on to plan my next move. Soon after, I found a stone picking contract that paid $2,000. On top of that, I sold the stones I collected for an extra $280. Not huge, but every dollar counts when you're starting from scratch. Next, I grabbed 2 plowing contracts. Between them, I made another $3,600. Steady progress. But then, something special. A contract came in for harvesting cotton on Field 76. It paid nearly $16,000 just from the contract itself. That's huge. I immediately sent my trusted AI worker to handle the harvest. Once the field was done, I loaded up the cotton bales and delivered them to the farmer's market. And here's the wild part. I earned an extra $22,200 from the leftover cotton. This was a massive boost and pushed me even closer to my next big goal. After that win, I kept the momentum going. More contracts rolled in. Cultivating, another round of cotton harvesting, and even harvesting spinach on Field 55. Some of those jobs paid over $10,000. Insane for contract work. By the end of the day, I had grinded my way up to $135,600. But I wasn't stopping there. I skipped ahead to November and jumped right back into the grind. First job, a mowing contract on Field 12. It paid $2,700 ongoing. But get this, I didn't even mow. The contract auto-completed thanks to a glitch, and I got paid anyway. Hey, I'm not complaining. At this point, yeah, it might seem repetitive. Contracts, contracts, contracts. But this is the reality of building something from nothing. You've got to push through the grind to earn the freedom later. To keep the greenhouses producing lettuce, I refilled them with water. It's not much money yet, but with more greenhouses, that passive income is going to stack up. And with $150,000 in the bank, it was finally time to make a bold move. I dropped just under $100,000 on a stone crusher. Now, you might be wondering, was this a good idea? That's up for debate, so let me know in the comments. But I think it's going to pay off. I also set up a selling point next to it and bought a $5,000 belt to automate sales. I've got one more big idea for this setup, but right now, I don't have the funds, so you'll have to stay tuned for that. With just under $40,000 left, it was back to the grind. Because I'm always doing fertilizing jobs, I decided to buy a solid fertilizer spreader for $25,000. Now I don't have to lease equipment for those contracts, saving money in the long run. I accepted another fertilizing contract, bought some fertilizer, and hit the fields again. And let me tell you, I was running out of money fast, so I went into full grind mode, contract after contract, lettuce selling from the greenhouses, and stone sales from the crusher. Eventually, I climbed back up to $85,300. But instead of sitting on the cash, I reinvested. Two more greenhouses costing me $72,000 dropped my balance to $13,000, right where I started this episode. Feels like no progress, right? Wrong. With more greenhouses and automated stone sales, my passive income is growing fast. I refilled the new greenhouses with water, set them to produce lettuce, and accepted two final contracts to finish the day. I wrapped up with $38,700 in the bank and a whole lot more potential than when I started. So here's what we accomplished today. We made tens of thousands from smart contracts, bought a stone crusher, and added two more greenhouses to ramp up passive income. The grind continues. It's December, and I'm starting off with just $62,000 in the bank. Time to hustle. First thing I did was sell the stones that the stone crusher produced overnight. That gave me just over $3,000. Then I accepted a contract to cultivate Field 52, which would bring in $3,700. So I jumped into the tractor, headed to the field, and hired an AI worker to take care of it. Next, a plowing contract popped up. That one would earn me $6,600. Same process again, drove over to the field and let an AI worker handle it. After that, a few more contracts became available. One of them was cultivating Field 51, right next to the one I was already working on. That paid $6,400. Then came a big one, cultivating Field 38 for $12,000. That was insane. So I kept grinding contracts, both plowing and cultivating, and soon I had over $120,000 in the bank. I knew I needed to reinvest that money smartly. The easiest decision was to expand my greenhouses. I bought 3 more, transported water to them, and set them up to produce lettuce. By the end of December, I had $12,500 left in the bank. There wasn't much else to do, so I slept through to January. When I woke up, the greenhouses had produced overnight, and I now had $65,000 in the bank. Just like before, the first thing I did in January was sell the stones from the stone crusher. Then I decided to purchase one more greenhouse, bringing my total to 8. After taking care of all my tasks on the farm, I moved on to contract work. The only one available in January was a rock removal job on Farmland 86, paying $1,800. But that was it. Since it's winter, there's not much to do. So I relied on my passive income sources, the greenhouses and the stone crusher. By the end of the day, I had just under $83,000 in the bank. This is exactly why I made these investments. During slow months like this, they keep the money flowing. Fast forward to February. I woke up and there was snow on the ground. So I followed my routine, sold the stones from the stone crusher, filled up the greenhouses with water, and made sure lettuce production was going strong. With just under $140,000 in the bank, I decided it was time to make another investment. I had a few options: keep expanding greenhouses or diversify. I chose to diversify and invested around $80,000 into a chicken coop. I also bought 360 baby chicks, which cost me just under $2,200. But there was one problem: I had no food for the chickens. So I had to improvise. I went to the store and bought a trailer that could haul grain and also carry pallets when the chickens start producing eggs. That cost me $31,000. Then, I bought 8,000 liters of wheat for $12,000. I know it's probably not the most cost-effective way to feed them, but I might change that later. I hitched up the trailer, loaded the wheat, and drove it back to the coop. I made sure the chickens had everything they needed to start growing and hopefully producing eggs soon. What do you think? Was this a smart investment or not? Let me know in the comments below. Since it's still winter, there wasn't much more to do. I ended February with $57,000 and called it a day. I woke up in March and went straight into my daily routine. Checked on the greenhouses, filled them with water, sold the stones, and looked after the chickens. Then it was time for contracts. First job was fertilizing Field 29, which paid just under $1,000. Not much, but it was a good way to start the day. Then came a better one, wrapping bales on Field 11, which paid $5,000. I kept grinding contracts all day. plowing, fertilizing, bale wrapping, and more. After a full day of work, my bank balance hit just over $170,000. So I decided to invest in another field. I bought farmland 36 for $118,000. You might be wondering why. Well, buying food for the chickens all the time won't be sustainable. My plan is to grow it myself. In the long run, this should be way more profitable. Did I make the right call? Let me know in the comments. That wrapped up March, and I ended the day with $54,000 in the bank. Straight into April. As usual, I started with my daily routine, selling stones, checking greenhouses, transporting water, and looking after the chickens. Field 36, the one I bought in March, was already cultivated. All I had to do now was plant it. Since it's April, the only crop I could plant that chickens eat was sorghum. Wheat and barley are planted in other months. If you know which of the three, sorghum, wheat, or barley, is best for chickens, let me know in the comments. I bought a planter for $59,000 and some seeds. Then, I hired an AI worker to plant sorghum on field 36. After that, I accepted fertilizing contracts on fields 13 and 30, which brought in another $4,800. I did several more fertilizing jobs and ended April with $98,500. Then came May. Same routine, daily checkups, then straight into contracts. At the start, I took on 2 fertilizing jobs that paid $3,300. I did more of them throughout the day, including one that paid just over $7,000. That's pretty much all that happened in May. But thanks to the greenhouses and the stone crusher, I finished the day with $221,000. In June, I kept the same routine but had one extra task, buying more food for the chickens. I hitched up the trailer and drove to the store to buy another 8,000 liters of wheat for $12,000. Hopefully that's the last time I need to buy chicken feed because in August, the sorghum will be ready for harvest. I think field 36 is big enough to feed them for a whole year. Back to contract grinding. I did multiple jobs, mowing, bale wrapping, and more. One contract stood out. Harvesting spinach on field 87, which paid $8,600 after leasing the equipment. Plus, I sold the leftover crops for extra income. While browsing the store, I found a baler on sale in the used section for more than half off the new price. I grabbed it for $58,400. It comes with a wrapper on the back that wraps the bales automatically. Super helpful if I start doing grass in the future. That was it for June. I ended the month with $273,000. Now into July, the final month of year 1 and starting from zero. I did my usual tasks, set up the stone crusher to sell stones, checked on the chickens, and watered the greenhouses. Then it was time for more contract work, fertilizing, baling, cultivating. A really productive day with lots of high-paying jobs. My bank account grew to $372,000. The chickens produced 4 pallets of eggs, totaling 4,000 liters. I loaded them onto the trailer and sold them at the bakery, earning $13,300. Not bad at all for the first few months. Before the sun went down, I accepted two more contracts to harvest peas on fields, 55 and 78. These would bring in $10,000 from the jobs, plus income from the leftover crops. Now here's something interesting. Since I planted sorghum on field 36, I'll need a harvester in August. But imagine if the game let you hire another farmer to harvest your field for you, just like a contract job. You'd pay them instead of buying your own harvester. I know buying one is better in the long run, but it would be such a great feature. Anyway, I saw a harvester in the used section for half price and bought it for just under $120,000. I'll get the header and other equipment in the next episode. Back to the pea harvest on field 78. I made an additional $11,600 from the leftover crops. We're ending the season with almost $313,000. Not bad at all, considering we started from nothing. That wraps up the first season. It's August, 8 in the morning. My bank account shows just over $350,000. I kicked off the morning like usual. First thing, I set the stones produced overnight by the stone crusher to be sold. After that, I transported water to all the greenhouses to make sure lettuce production keeps going strong. Then it was time to harvest the sorghum I planted earlier. The problem is, I didn't own a header for the harvester I bought in the last episode. So I had to swing by the store and drop $35,000 on a new header. On top of that, I needed a header trailer to transport it to the field, which cost me another $7,500. While I was at the dealership, something caught my eye. A used Deutz Fahr 6 CRV shift tractor was on sale. I hesitated for a second, wondering if I really needed it. But the farm is scaling up fast. Sooner or later, I'll need a second tractor anyway. I pulled the trigger and bought it for $66,000. Then came another purchase, this time a trailer. I picked up the Claas Carrot 140 TD, which hauls 22.5 cubic meters for just $20,000. In my opinion, that's one of the best bang-for-your-buck trailers you can get. After the shopping spree, I headed to Field 36 and got the sorghum harvest underway, assigning an AI worker to handle the job. The result was 27,500 liters of sorghum. That's enough to keep my chickens fed for an entire year. Once the harvest was done and the grain was safely stored, it was time to hit the contract grind. I mowed the grass on fields 35, 44, and 12 for $5,500. Not huge money, but decent after the spending spree I just went on. Next, I cultivated field 78 for $5,400 and harvested sorghum on field 10 for $2,400. A bunch of other contracts were available, but I passed. They were all vegetable harvests: red beet, carrots, and parsnips. In my opinion, those are some of the worst contracts in the game. They take way too long, they're a pain to harvest, and the payout isn't even worth the time. On top of that, the harvesters for these crops don't have built-in grain tanks, which means you have to drive alongside the AI worker. Total nightmare. I know there are modded harvesters with tanks, but I'm not spending money or storage space on that just for contracts. I don't plan on growing those crops long-term anyway. Back to the grind, I knocked out a few more contracts, including cultivating, sowing, and harvesting peas. By the end of the day, my bank balance was sitting just over $300,000. That wrapped up August, and just like that, we were into September. September started off like every other month. I sold the stone, watered the greenhouses, and fed the chickens. Then I picked up a $4,400 contract to harvest peas on field 30. While my AI worker took care of the harvesting, I went on another shopping mission. With field 36 now harvested, it was time to prep it for the next crop. Someone in the comments mentioned that barley is actually a better feed crop for chickens than sorghum. So I thought, why not give it a shot? But here's the issue. Last time, I bought a planter, not a seeder. And planters can't sow barley. That forced a decision. Should I go with sorghum again or commit to barley? I chose barley, so I returned to the dealership and found a Horschfeiner 6 SL shallow cultivator that can cultivate and seed at the same time. It cost me $39,000. I also had to buy a separate seed tank for $19,500. Not cheap. Was it overkill? Maybe. You tell me in the comments. Was that a smart investment, or should I have gone the cheaper route and stuck with sorghum? Anyway, I grabbed 2 cultivating contracts for fields 6 and 68 to help offset the cost. Together, they'd bring in $6,800. But then I hit another roadblock. The AI worker couldn't use the new cultivator because it's designed to work with the seed tank attached. Since there was no seed in the tank, the AI refused to do the job. Classic bug. So I had to do it manually. Luckily, GPS steering assist made it mostly hands-free. I earned an extra $9,600 from leftover peas on field 30. That was a nice bonus. I also upgraded my tractor's tires to wide tires for $3,000 so it could handle the heavy cultivator better. Then a big contract came in. Harvest sorghum on field 37, right above mine. The payout was $7,200. This is where owning your own equipment pays off. No leasing costs. Full profit, unless you hire AI workers, of course. While my harvester was working, I had an AI worker begin cultivating and sowing field 36 with barley. Then came a mowing job for $8,500. Easy money. After the barley was sown, I fertilized field 36 to push the yield bonus as close to 100% as possible, again with help from an AI worker. Then came a full grind session. I harvested green beans on field 86, mowed field 11, cultivated field 47, plowed field 30, and more. 2 contracts stood out. Plowing field 77 brought in nearly $18,000. It took a while but was definitely worth it. And then there was harvesting sorghum on field 91. Before I tackled field 91, I made a pit stop at the shop to repair the harvester. That cost me just under $5,500, but it was essential. Poorly maintained equipment loses power and burns fuel faster. A worn-down harvester runs slower and costs you time and money. Now here's the problem. I accepted the job on field 91, but realized I had no trailer available to haul the grain. I had to act fast and decided to invest in a silo. That way, I could store the sorghum that I harvested from my own field, plus the leftover sorghum from this contract on field 91. I spent just over $20,000 on the silo, worth every penny. I finished most of the harvest myself and hired an AI to help with the rest while I transported the grain. In total, I got 5,900 liters of leftover sorghum from field 91. So, I stored it in my new silo and got more feed for the chickens. To wrap up the day, I squeezed in a few more contracts. Plowing, cultivating, you name it. By the end of the day, my bank account was creeping back toward $400,000. But don't forget, I've made major upgrades: a new tractor, a cultivator and seeder combo, an extra trailer, and a new silo. All of that sets me up for even more income moving forward.
We're now 2 months into our second season, and things are looking incredible. I can't believe how far we've come, and I hope this momentum keeps building. It's October, 8 a.m., and my morning routine is locked in. First priority, those stones from my stone crusher. They've been working all night, and it's time to cash in. But here's where things get interesting. I'm about to make a massive change to this routine later in the episode. More on that in a minute. Next up, water transport to all my greenhouses. These lettuce operations are my steady income stream, and keeping them hydrated is absolutely critical. No water means no lettuce, and no lettuce means no money. It's that simple. With farm maintenance done, it's time for the real money maker, contract grinding. And let me tell you, October is about to become the most profitable day I've had so far. First contract of the day, harvesting corn on field 64. Now, here's the thing about corn. You need a special header, and I don't own one yet. I could buy one, but since I'm not planting corn or sunflowers for my own fields right now, leasing makes more sense. After leasing costs, this job nets me $2,400. I fired up the leased harvester myself instead of hiring an AI worker. Why? Because I had the time, and every dollar I don't spend on workers is a dollar in my pocket. Plus, with GPS steering assist, it's actually pretty relaxing. The corn harvest went smoothly, and then I switched gears, grabbed my tractor, attached the fertilizer spreader, and headed to my barley field. That extra fertilization is pushing me closer to that sweet 100% yield bonus. These small moves add up to big profits. Next contract, plowing field 83 for $3,300 after leasing costs. I set an AI worker on this one because something bigger was about to happen. Then it appeared. A soybean harvest contract on field 31 for $7,600. This is exactly what I was waiting for. No leasing fees because I already own the equipment, and I harvested it myself to save on worker costs. But wait, there's more. After harvesting the entire field, I transported those soybeans to the selling point and made an additional $3,500 from the leftover crop. That's over $11,000 from one contract when you factor in the savings and bonuses. This is why contract work is so powerful in the early game. Here's a pro tip that most players miss. When I finished the corn harvest on field 64, I didn't immediately return the equipment. Instead, I kept it and looked for more corn contracts. This saved me from paying leasing fees multiple times. Sure enough, another corn contract popped up on Farmland 90 for just under $4,500, plus extra cash from leftover corn. By keeping that leased equipment active, I probably saved myself $800 in additional fees. Small moves like this add up fast. While my AI worker handled the corn on Farmland 90, something beautiful happened. A cotton harvest contract on Farmland 19 for $6,800 after leasing fees. Cotton is where the real money lives in this game. I set another AI worker on this job. When the harvest finished, I jumped in my semi-truck, loaded up those cotton bales, and headed straight to the selling point. The result, an additional $9,000 from leftover cotton sales. Combined with the contract payment, that's nearly $16,000 from one job. This is why I prioritize cotton contracts whenever they appear. At this point, the contracts were coming fast and furious. Another corn harvest on Farmland 89 brought in $7,500. A cultivating contract earned me $11,600, absolutely incredible for a single job. I also grabbed a fertilizing contract on Farmland 23 for $3,500, multiple plowing contracts on Farmlands 20 and 57, cultivating on Farmland 58, soybean harvesting on Farmland 3, and honestly so many more that if I described every single amazing contract, we'd be here all day. The numbers were getting ridiculous. By the end of October, my bank balance hit just over $660,000. Remember, I started October with $436,000. That's over $200,000 earned in a single day. This was absolutely the best day I've had so far. October was incredible, so I went to sleep feeling amazing. But November started with a punch to the gut. I made a huge mistake that cost me serious money. When I woke up, I was immediately frustrated. I forgot to move the egg pallets from my chicken coop, and now my chickens couldn't produce any more eggs. This is exactly the kind of oversight that can kill your momentum in this game, but mistakes happen, and the key is learning from them. I jumped into my tractor, attached the trailer, and loaded up 6 pallets of eggs. At the farmer's kiosk, they sold for just under $31,000. Not bad, but imagine if I'd been collecting regularly, I probably lost out on thousands. On my way back from the farmer's kiosk, I stopped for fuel and equipment maintenance. The tractor and trailer repair cost just under $2,800, which isn't too bad considering how hard I've been working them. But here's where I made a massive decision that changes everything. Instead of selling my stones like usual, I made a huge investment, a cement factory for $370,000. I know what you're thinking, that's a lot of money, but here's my logic. Instead of just selling raw stones, I can now process them into cement bags, cement bricks, or roof plates. I chose cement bags, but I'm curious what you think. Which product do you believe is most profitable? Let me know in the comments. This investment means my stone crusher now feeds directly into cement production. It's a complete game changer for my passive income strategy. After that rough start with the eggs, November turned around fast. A stone picking contract on Field 77 for $13,500 popped up. And here's the beautiful part. Those stones go straight to my new cement factory. It's like getting paid twice for the same resource. While an AI worker handled the stone picking, a mowing contract appeared for $8,500. These smaller contracts add up, and they keep the cash flowing between the big jobs. With over 10,000 liters of stones collected from Field 77, I transported them back to my cement factory. My production line was officially running. Then came the contract I'd been waiting for. Sunflower harvest on farmland 24 for $20,000. This was massive, so I immediately accepted and set an AI worker on it. After transporting the sunflowers to the selling point, I earned an extra $11,500 from leftover crop sales. That's over $31,000 from one contract when you include the bonus. These big harvest contracts are absolute gold. One contract that had me worried was cotton harvest on Farmland 8. The equipment provided gave me a harvester that makes round cotton bales, but the trailer was labeled for square bales only. I was skeptical, but decided to risk it. Thankfully, the trailer actually supported both bale types, and I managed to transport everything successfully. The leftover cotton sale brought in an extra $8,200. Sometimes you've got to take calculated risks in this game. Just when I thought November was winding down, a massive plowing contract appeared for Farmland 76, worth $17,400. Even though it was getting dark at 5 p.m. and starting to rain, that payout was too big to ignore. I set an AI worker on the plowing job and grabbed a cultivating contract on Farmland 29 while I waited. By 6 p.m., all work was done, it was raining hard, and I called it a day with $511,000 in the bank. Not bad after that huge cement factory investment. December brought changes to my daily routine. My stone crusher now feeds the cement factory instead of direct sales. The factory had already produced 4 pallets of cement bags, and things were looking promising. The winter season is typically slower for contracts, but I still managed to grab some plowing work. Field 15 for $2,800, and Farmland 21 for $4,000. Not massive payouts, but steady income during the quiet season. After completing several more plowing and cultivating contracts, I loaded up 6 pallets of cement bags and headed to the Grain Elevator Museum. Those 6 pallets sold for $21,000. Not bad for processed stones that would have sold for much less in raw form. To wrap up the episode, I added a large floodlight to my farm. Working in the dark was becoming a real problem, and this investment in infrastructure will pay dividends in future episodes. I'm going to take you on a wild ride that ends with me going back to almost $0. But trust me, you need to watch till the end to see what actually happens and why this might be the smartest move I've made yet. So grab your snack, settle in, and let's get started. It's January 8 a.m., and I'm ready to kick off the day strong. Winter in Farming Simulator can be brutal if you don't have a plan, but here's the thing. I've got passive income streams working for me. First stop, the cement factory. Overnight, this beauty produced 2 pallets of cement bags. Not bad for doing absolutely nothing while I slept, right? Next up, I had to check on my chickens and feed them some sorghum. These little moneymakers need their breakfast too. The last task on my morning routine was transporting water to the greenhouses. I know this might sound repetitive, but this daily routine is what keeps the money flowing during the slow winter months. Now, here's where winter gets interesting. With most farming work on hold, I had time to focus on my passive income. By the end of the day, my cement factory had cranked out 4 pallets of cement bags. I loaded them up in my trailer and headed straight to the warehouse. The result? $12,400 in my pocket. That's the power of passive income during the winter slow season. But wait, there's more. I also sold the eggs my chickens produced at the small farmer's kiosk for an additional $18,600. Not a bad day for winter work. With some solid passive income helping us through the cold months, I was ready to move into February. February 8 a.m. Same routine as always, check the farm, do the necessary tasks, but I had something bigger planned for this month. Here's what I was thinking. Winter gives you time to plan and invest, so I bought a steel chainsaw and started looking at the map for potential land purchases. After a lot of thinking, I decided to purchase farmland 67 for $41,500. Now you might be asking yourself, what's the plan for this land? I'll tell you, but first I had a massive amount of work ahead of me. This land was covered with trees and bushes that needed to be cleared. No time to waste. I dressed up and started cutting down trees immediately. I cut down all the trees marked on my land and leased a front-loader vehicle with a log fork. This way, I could load up the trees on my trailer and clean up my land properly. After loading my first batch of logs and selling them at the selling point, I realized this was going to take forever. I needed a different solution. Now, you might not agree with what I did next, but I found a way to save massive amounts of time. I leased a winch puller that could pull entire trees behind my tractor. So instead of cutting every tree into logs, I attached whole trees to the back of my tractor and pulled them straight to the selling point. It might not have been the most conventional method, but hey, if it works, I don't mind it. I wasn't going to spend weeks cutting down every single tree. With all the trees cleared, the land started looking amazing, but I wasn't done yet. Time to clean up the bushes and tree stumps. I cleaned up all the stumps and bushes, and the land looked fantastic. But here's where I need your help. Can someone tell me how to remove the tree decorations from the land? I tried every possible way but couldn't manage it. Is it even possible? If giants made it so you can't get rid of them, I'll be seriously frustrated. Please let me know in the comments how I can get rid of them. I put up a fence around my land to keep it protected, and now it was time for the real reason I bought this land. I was going to install solar collectors across the entire area to generate serious passive income. I believe this is an incredible investment. Each collector can generate anywhere from $0 to just under $9,000 every month. The income varies depending on how much sun there is each month. I placed down 8 solar collectors, which cost me $748,000. That's a massive investment, but the potential returns are huge. With the collectors installed, I wanted to make the land beautiful, so I painted grass on the rest of the area. Since I had all the tree clearing equipment, I decided to clean up the trees on my main farm as well. This would give me more space for future expansion, room for more production buildings, animals, and whatever else I might need. With the trees cut down, you can see how much more space I have on my farm now. That's the end of February. I started the day with over $850,000, but now I'm down to $116,000. It's a scary drop, but I believe I made a really smart investment. Hopefully it pays off in the long run. March arrived, and with it came contract work. We're almost in spring season and things are about to get busy, but I'm ready for it. The first contract that popped up was a stone picking contract on field 50, which I obviously took. This contract pays $5,200. Plus, I get to transport the stones I picked to my cement factory for extra materials. More contracts started appearing, and I took them without hesitation. The next 3 contracts were bale wrapping jobs on farmlands 11, 12, and 84. Altogether, these brought me an extra $16,400. Not a bad way to start March. The last contract for the day was sowing farmland 25 with spinach, which paid just over $6,000. That was March, a few contracts here and there, some passive income, and I'm back up to $275,000. The grind definitely won't stop here. April started with my usual routine. Check the cement factory, check the chickens, and water the greenhouses. I really woke up when I saw a fertilizing contract available for $12,200. What a nice start to the day. There weren't that many contracts in April, but I still managed to get several done and bring home more cash. I did bale wrapping, stone picking, more fertilizing, and as the day was ending, I had to feed the chickens because they were running out of food. Before going to bed, I decided to sell the cement bags that the factory had produced. There were a lot of pallets this time. I loaded them up in my trailer and went straight to the farmer's market, where I earned $44,400. I also sold the eggs to the bakery for $17,700. Another nice way to end the day. Just before I wanted to go to bed, one more fertilizing contract popped up on Farmland 25 for $5,100. I had to take it. I don't want to miss out on any money. That was April. Not super busy, but I still managed to earn good money. May was slower than I expected. I only completed 2 contracts, fertilizing on Farmland 62 and cultivating on Farmland 4. I saw that there were 2 contracts available on Farmlands 11 and 84 for bale wrapping, but I had other plans. I actually went ahead and purchased these 2 fields myself. The 2 fields together cost me $431,500. Here's why I did this. I'm starting grass farming. Remember when I bought that baler on sale way back? I knew I'd start farming grass one day, and that day has finally come. It's time to put that baler to use instead of letting it sit there doing nothing. I went to visit Farmland 84 to check if the grass was ready for harvesting, but it wasn't. It needed 1 more month of growing, so I let it grow. That's the end of May, and I need a good night's sleep because the next 2 months are going to be absolutely hectic. We're entering harvesting season. I started June with my usual routine. It was raining a little bit, but that wouldn't stop me. First, I had to purchase more equipment to take care of the grass fields. This included front and back mowers that attached to a tractor, which cost me $48,500. I also purchased a windrower for $19,500. With the equipment purchased, it was time to get to work. I attached the brand new mowers to my tractor, went to Farmland 84, and hired an AI worker to mow the grass. Once the AI finished mowing Farmland 84, I went to Farmland 11 and hired an AI worker to mow that field as well. While that was happening, I hired another AI worker to windrow the mowed grass on Farmland 84. Good management is really important in Farming Simulator 25 if you want to maximize your time and profits. Once the AI worker finished windrowing on Farmland 84, I hired him to do the same on Farmland 11. While he was doing that, I picked up my baler from the store where I'd parked it ages ago and went to Field 84 to start baling. The wrapper on the back of the baler helps the bales ferment into silage, which gives me more profit than just regular grass bales. Once all the work was finished on these 2 fields, I had an idea. Why not mow the grass that was on my main farm? So I did exactly that and managed to get a few more silage bales. After I finished all that work, a contract popped up to harvest spinach on Field 25 for $8,000. Besides the contract payment, I earned an extra $8,000 from leftover crop sales. Another big contract came up to cultivate Field 87 for $8,400. With these 2 contracts done, it was time to focus on Field 36. I almost forgot that this field was ready for barley harvest. I hired an AI worker to help with the harvesting and set the harvester to make straw swaths. I managed to harvest 32,600 liters of barley, which I think is way more than the sorghum last year. Thanks to the person who suggested I do barley instead of sorghum. With the barley transported to my silo, I had one more job on Field 36, baling the straw. Since I already had bales on my grass fields and now straw bales on Field 36, I had to purchase a bale trailer. I spent $50,500 on a brand new bale trailer. I went straight back to my field to pick up the straw bales and transport them back to my farm. What I'll do with these bales, I'm not sure yet, so if you have any suggestions on the most effective way to use them, let me know in the comments. With so many silage bales around my farm, I couldn't let them sit there taking up space. Plus, with the straw bales, I had to come up with a quick solution. I purchased a bale and pallet storage building for $49,000. I think this is really necessary and a good investment. I stored the straw bales and the silage bales that were on my farm. However, the other silage bales I'll let sit on the fields because I'll be selling those next month when they ferment. After that, I did a whole lot of contracts, one of them even paying over $20,000, which was insane. At the end of the day, I sold the cement bags for just under $26,000. That was June. What a month. July came around, and after my morning routine, I accepted a harvesting contract on Farmland 38, which was ready with canola. I earned an additional $7,000 in leftover crops. This job was just the start, not the finish, for July. July offered a whole lot of contracts, and I made serious money from those contracts. It took a lot of time and effort, but it was absolutely worth it. I almost forgot that I had silage bales on my fields that were ready to be sold. I picked up my bale trailer and went straight to Farmland 84 to collect the bales and sell them to the biogas plant. I managed to earn around $162,000 from the sold silage bales on Farmlands 84 and 11. That's what I call a payday. After that, I did a whole lot more contracts: stone picking, plowing, cultivating, harvesting, you name it. I spent a lot of time on these contracts, but they were definitely worth it in the end. I also almost forgot to fertilize the grass fields. I picked up my fertilizer and hired an AI worker to help with the fertilizing process. Once that was done, I sold the eggs as well, which brought me an additional $17,300. I also sold 6 pallets of cement bags for $12,300. It was 8 p.m. The sun had gone down, and I had $713,000 in the bank. That's when I decided to make a massive investment. I was going to invest almost all of my money. I purchased 7 more solar collectors that cost me $654,000. This brings my total solar setup to 15 collectors. With $58,000 left in my bank, I couldn't do much. So I waited for 3 hours to let the greenhouses generate some passive income. I got up to $73,000, and that's when I could purchase 2 more additional greenhouses. I did exactly that, bringing my total to 10 greenhouses. I transported water and set those 2 additional greenhouses to produce lettuce as well. And that leaves me with only $874 in the bank, which is almost $0. You can't do much with this money, but hopefully the investments I made will pay off big time. Think about it. I now have 15 solar collectors generating passive income every month, 10 greenhouses producing crops, chickens laying eggs, and a cement factory working around the clock. That's a lot of passive income streams. That's a wrap for episode 7 and season 2 of Starting from $0 in Farming Simulator 25. If you enjoyed this episode, smash that like button and subscribe for more episodes. The previous episode and full playlist are linked right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we're going to push this operation even further. Will my massive investments pay off? Can I build back from almost $0 again? Find out in the next episode.